This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Kindness. We see it all around us. We see it when someone pays for someone else's coffee or holds the door open for another person. We see it in the smallest of gestures, like a smile or a kind word. But it's different when we turn on the news or social media. Oftentimes, what we hear about, what outlets are pushing, is the opposite of kind. Welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. Our goal is to give you a place to relax, to revel in stories of people who have received or given kindness, a place to inspire and motivate each and every one of us to practice kindness every day. Hey, hello, and welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. I am your host, Mike Rathbun. And a little housekeeping here first before we get into the show. As a member of the Deluxe Edition Network, I am legally obligated, I do it out of fun, I like to do it, to bring up to you the 3 podcasts of the month for the month of March. The first one is Bacon is My Podcast, also I Need Some Creep, and finally, The Beard Laws. In addition, go ahead and check out the show notes for my 2 sponsors for this show, the Coffee Bros and Sunday Scaries. And when you check that out and go to their websites, you'll get a discount for just mentioning my name. So go ahead and do that. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. And my guest today is such an impressive woman. She's an author. She's an entrepreneur. And this is in no particular order. She's an author. She's an entrepreneur. She's a philanthropist. And I have it on good authority that either the Kansas City Royals or the Kansas City Chiefs are going to draft her number 1. I had to throw that in there. You're a huge Kansas City. Oh, I'm sorry. Welcome to the show, Susan Combs.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. And you should have thrown in there world champs. Because the Chiefs.
Well, I was going to say that and say, congratulations to the Chiefs and yourself by extension.
Thank you. My husband's a 49ers fan, so he's still licking his wounds a little bit.
Oh, how did that go over?
We were actually in Missouri for the Super Bowl, and the first time we played against each other a couple of years ago, we were in separate rooms, but this time he was allowed in the same room, and he did get some extra love from our 4-year-old and 6-year-old nieces after he suffered the loss. So
there was some comforting involved and
made up
pats on the back and oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, you're like small town Missouri girl, right?
Yeah.
But currently living in the big city.
Yeah.
You started your own insurance brokerage at 26 years old. That just blows me away. I mean, because, the whole New York City thing and starting a business is never easy, A. And starting a business in New York, is it just exponentially harder?
I mean, I don't know any different.
Right?
So
wasn't for me.
I think that the networking opportunities, and just also too, we have almost 9 million people in this city.
Right.
So there's a lot of opportunities to sell insurance to people for sure. So, but like I said, I don't know any different. So I can't even tell you if it's harder or easier in New York versus other places. For sure.
And we should probably shout out the name of the brokerage. It's Combs & Co., correct?
Yep.
We'll have a link for that in the show notes.
Thank you.
That's so cool. But the reason you're here is kind of your relationship with your dad.
Mm-hmm.
I was just, and I knew this on some level, but apparently it didn't click with my brain. Your dad was in 3 branches of the military, wasn't he, over the course of his career?
Yes, he was, once a Marine, always a Marine, right? But Marines and then the Army and then the Air Force ultimately.
Wow. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I did 8 years in the Air Force, and I'm like, I can't imagine hopping between it's all the service, and to some extent it's all the same, but by the same token, I mean, there are three distinct branches, and
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I mean, he had such a deep love for the Marines, and those, I mean, he was a Purple Fox, one of the world famous Purple Foxes from Vietnam, and helicopter pilot. So he flew CH-46s, so they're known as Sea Knights. And
okay.
one of the maybe interesting things for your listeners is that, I mean, to be honest, the only reason my dad was a helicopter pilot is because he couldn't swim. He
Same.
so back then, and I don't know if this is still the same way, but back then, if you were in the Marines and you wanted to be a pilot, if you flew planes, you went to Navy flight school. If you wanted to fly helicopters, you went to Army flight school.
Oh,
And
really?
so if you went to Army flight school, you didn't have to know how to swim. If you went to Navy flight school, you had to know how to swim. So that's what he always told me, is that was the reasoning behind there. So that's kind of also the reasoning why he segued into, Army, because they had the helicopters. So when he did reserve status, and then to be honest, I don't even know why he ended up switching over to the Air Force. That's a question that I guess I wish I would have asked him.
Did he
But
fly helicopters in the Air Force as well?
no, not at all. Not at
Oh,
all. So my dad, he was more intel at that point. So
okay.
ultimately he did strategic plans and policies, and he was on the Joint Chiefs of Staff for the Army and Air National Guard, and he did a lot of long range planning. He was a J5 in '08 for his ranking and everything. So
Major General,
yes,
2-star.
yes,
They always drilled that into us in boot camp. Be
yeah.
my little
Little
general.
general. Yes, I was ROTC for a couple of years in school, so yes, I learned that too.
Yeah, that's so awesome. It's funny you mentioned not being able to swim. My dad was in the Navy in World War II. Um, my dad also could not swim. I'm like, okay, granted, the Air Force was really part of the Army at that point, but I mean, of all the services, given the fact that you can't swim, why the Navy? I never did get an answer out of him, but we used to tease him mercilessly about that. And he passed that gene on to me. So the I can sink in salt water gene.
Yeah.
My mom always used to say, "You are the only man I know that can sink in salt water." But anyway, I digress. So and when your dad was in Vietnam, he unfortunately came in contact with Agent Orange. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, like most of the guys did. So, I mean, and that's, I think, one of the things that's kind of a misconception that a lot of people don't realize is maybe you have a family member that served during the Vietnam era, but they weren't deployed over there. They still probably were exposed to it.
Oh, wow.
Because a lot of times when they came back, they brought a lot of things with them.
Sure.
And
It was on everything.
yeah, and they had barrels of it, and so you
Yeah.
had people that were unloading cargo ships and cargo planes, and they came into contact with Agent Orange, even though they weren't even over there when they were spraying it. So
Right.
it's one of those things that there's actually a lot of active Agent Orange claims for people that serve stateside, as well as being deployed abroad.
Wow. Wow. And Agent Orange, that was a defoliant, was it? I don't remember.
Just basically cleared jungles.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like a lot of I mean, my dad was a farm kid. There were a lot of farm kids that were drafted during that time.
Yeah.
And I think a little bit of the methodology was, man, if you have to clear a field before harvest, what easier way to do it than this stuff that worked really slick? They just didn't know all the repercussions later on that they would suffer.
Yeah, unfortunately. And yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But like so many things, it's like, well, Roundup, right? Hey, this works really well. It kills everything. Oh yeah, maybe even me.
Yeah.
I say that and it sounds flippant when I say it like that, but I mean, you just don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know, right? So you and your dad had a pretty good relationship though, right?
Yeah, we were very close, very, very close.
Awesome. So after he's retired And did I see? I've got the brain of a golden retriever puppy. I'm sorry. I saw a picture of him on your website in a helicopter, and there's a sticker, reelect
Combs, yeah, correct.
Combs for
Yeah.
what was it?
So, House of Representatives, so the Missouri State House of Representatives. So my father's uncle, my great uncle, served in the Missouri House of Representatives, and during the Vietnam War, he was up for re-election. So they
Oh,
sent a bunch of bumper stickers in one of my dad's care packages to him, and so then he took the bumper sticker and went and put it on all the helicopters. and
on
so
all the helicopters?
yeah, I think there were like 8 of them that had him on there. And so we had always seen like one picture, but then after my father passed and we were just going through some boxes of things, we found all these pictures of him in different poses with the helicopters with the bumper sticker on it. So it was pretty cool.
He sounds like a really fun guy.
Yeah, he was a good guy. And he had a real dry sense of humor. If I brought in any friends of his to talk to you, they would just say, he'd zing you, but you wouldn't know he zinged you for about a week. And then it would hit you and you're like, oh man, he got me good.
Yeah. You're sitting around playing cards or something and go, wait a minute. Yeah, I've been there before. So how long after he was out was he diagnosed with cancer?
Pretty much right away, to be honest. His discharge papers were, I believe, 2007, and then he was diagnosed with Agent Orange related throat cancer in 2008.
Oh wow!
So he actually had aspirations. He was going to go into contracting for the government, and my dad had also been in the civilian world. He had been a circuit judge, and he had actually won an election to start being prosecuting attorney again, and that was one of his favorite roles. He just enjoyed it. And a lot of people, once you've been judged, you don't go back to practicing, but he just loved that position. And it was kind of a part-time job. He wanted to keep his mind active. He was looking forward to it. But then he was in DC and he was trying to swallow a pill and it got stuck. Oh. And it was enough to scare him that something wasn't right. And after they checked things out, they saw that there was a tumor growing at the base of his tongue. And so that was in 2008. He was treated at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and he had a very major surgery. I mean, he was cut ear to ear. He looked like a mob hit gone wrong. But we found out when he was being treated and when he had that surgery that 4 other helicopter pilots all had the same cancer.
Oh, from his unit?
And so we thought that was just too much of a coincidence for it not to be related. Because, of course, when he put in his claim, the government said, oh, well, did you smoke or drink, sir? And he's like, yes, like everybody did then.
Yeah, like 99% of.
Exactly. And so the first claim was denied. And but then after we found out that the 4 other service members all had this cancer, we were like, come on, it's too much related. So since my father had a legal background and he knew how to write legal documents and worked with his doctors, his Agent Orange related claim ended up taking about 3 years to be paid. And my family, we thought that was horrendous. We thought it was a really long time. But if you go on the VA website, they'll tell you right on there, average claims take about 7 years to process. And 14% of our service members pass away during that process.
Wow.
And
14%?
Yeah. So it's one of those things that it's like, you don't know until you get in there and realize this stuff. And, I mean, my dad was, like you said, he was a major general and he also had, he had the legal mind and could write things properly, and it still took him 3 years. And he knew where to go. And there's so many people that just don't know where to go. They take that paper that they got that said that, hey, your claim was denied, and they think, okay, that's it. And they don't realize that there's help out there. So there's a lot of veterans clinics, legal clinics all across the country that they're set up to help men and women that are dealing with this. So if somebody has a VA claim or an appeal or discharge upgrades or something like that, a lot of times, a lot of these claims come back to just, hey, this box wasn't checked or you missed this one form. And especially if you're a sick service member, a lot of times
Yeah.
the bandwidth, or I mean, think about if your child's trying to deal with this for you because you're so ill. I mean, a lot of the kids aren't in the service. They don't understand what a DD 214 is. They don't understand all these forms that have to be available. I mean, I was fortunate enough that before my father passed away, the last year of his life, he and I sat down twice, and we spreadsheeted everything. And my dad told me who to talk to. I mean, my dad told me who the plumber was, where the passwords were, who to sell the Winnebago to, things like that you have no way of knowing if you don't ask those questions. But one of the people he put me in contact with is with another general friend of his that was also, he had actually been former JAG, and he was an attorney.
Oh,
He says,
wow.
Susan, any questions you have about the VA, about the pension, about the claim, about anything for your mother's benefits after I'm gone, you go to George White. And, and I did. And George helped me navigate a lot of things. Just like, prime example is, one of the things George told me is, Susan, when your dad passes, I mean, this was a week before my dad passed, he said, you make sure to get on the death certificate that it was Agent Orange related throat cancer, because
Oh,
it that helps the other guys coming down the pike, because they need to know those statistics, and they need to see that was the reason. Because my father passed away at 73 years old, and he was somebody that was still working out all the time. He was cutting wood at our timber and things like that until the last year of his life. And, his life was cut down too short. And so there's things that, military families especially need to make sure that they kind of cover themselves, because it just, it helps the other people, not only you.
yeah. Oh, for sure. And I don't know why, but somehow, for some reason, it seems like the military makes it more difficult than it needs to be.
It's just government. Government makes everything hard. Yeah.
Although I will say, my dad had rheumatic fever when he was in World War II in the Navy, and they said it was a service-related disability. We'll be right back with my conversation with Susan right after these messages from another deluxe edition podcast.
In a world where podcasts have become bland and stale, one podcast dares to stand above. Barrel Age Flicks Podcast.
We're reviewing drinks,
breaking down movies, busting each other's balls. And we're big in Hong Kong.
Barrel Age Flicks Season 4. It's in the bottle.
yeah, yo! Available on Spotify, Apple Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, TikTok, YouTube, Patreon, and OnlyFans.
And they did a valve replacement on his heart because of it, which was pretty awesome. I was still young, maybe 15, 16. And I remember him and my mom went out to someplace in the Bay Area in San Francisco to a VA hospital. That was the closest one that could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, they stepped up. But you often hear the horror stories about the VA and how long it takes to get things done.
Yeah, and there's a lot of gray areas, and if there's a gray area, they're going to try to push that gray area. So that's why it's important to have an advocate for yourself. And so, I run an annual fundraiser for the University of Missouri School of Law Veterans Clinic that provides free legal services for veterans and their families navigating the VA claims and appeals process and the discharge upgrades and a whole lot of other stuff. But they're not the only ones out there. I mean, Yale actually has the largest veterans clinic.
Oh, wow.
So anybody that I talk to, I always say, if you have a veteran in your life that's having trouble with a claim, or you think that they might be eligible for some benefits, start with the closest, largest university in your area, because a lot of times they'll have a veterans clinic that can help you. So Michigan has one, Syracuse has one. There's just several out there, but a lot of times people don't know that they're out there. So that's what I always tell them. And I will say that even though there's one in the University of Missouri, you don't have to be from Missouri to get their help. So a lot of times there's a misconception that you have to be an alumni from the university clinic that's helping you, or you have to live in that state. And that's typically not true.
Wow.
So even if, say, you have a contact with one of the clinics, or say one of your listeners is having problems, I mean, I'm more than happy for them to reach out to me, and I can make a connection for them. And if they can help, they'll help. But they might steer you more towards if there's a clinic in your area that they know would be able to help you, just because it would be easier if you wanted to travel and see them.
Yeah.
It could be easier as well.
Is there like a website or something that you can go to and find out where the nearest one to you is?
So that's actually one of the things that we're working on for our website now. Probably by the end of March, we'll have a page on there that has legal clinics, veterans legal clinics that by state. So that can be a resource. But if you just Google veterans clinics, but make sure you Google veteran legal clinic. Because if you do veterans clinics, a lot of times you'll get the VA lists or things like that. But if you put the word legal in there, you can usually get a couple of websites that'll pop up that'll give you some information. The VA website, actually, I mean, anybody listening that's had to try to poke around the VA website knows that it's pretty arduous. But there is a list on the VA website too. But like I said, that's going to be something that we have on our website in the near future as well.
Well, since you brought up the University of Missouri Law School and their help with veterans, that seems like a really nice segue into your philanthropic work. And I love how this ties in. So you are, I'm struggling for the word, which is not an unusual occurrence. The person who founded the website, the charity, Pancakes for Roger.
Correct. So
how did that come about?
So Pancakes for Roger, I mean, to be honest, it started out as a movement before it was anything else. So, my father was on hospice, and I moved back from New York City to my small town, King City, Missouri. That was 986 people when I left. So I think it's 1,013 now. Booming metropolis.
Salute.
Yeah. But I moved back home to help care for my dad when he was on hospice. And, I have a brother that's a nurse, and my mother is still living too. But when it came to personality, my dad and I just really thought very similar. And so I was the one that could kind of get him to do what he which the other ones couldn't get him to do. Because my dad, you could use logic, and I'm logical. And so I'm like, Dad, if we do this, this happens. Let's not do that. He's like, okay. And then my mom will be like, I've been trying to get him to do that for 3 days, So we kind of had a cadence, and my dad and I, probably one of the things that united us mostly was we were regimented people. We were very scheduled. And so I'd get up in the morning and I'd check on him. If he was good, I'd go to the gym. I'd come back, I'd check on him again. If he was good, I'd get ready for the day. And then I'd come get him ready for the day. And so the last year of my dad's life, he had a feeding tube. Oh. And he was also on oxygen towards the end. And so, one morning we had gone through the whole cadence, and then I'm coming downstairs to help get him ready for the day. And we were very fortunate enough that we had a long-term care policy that would provide hospice services at home. So my father got to remain at home, which was very important to us.
Cool.
And so I went to his hospital bed, and he wasn't there. I went into the living room, he wasn't there. I went to the bathroom, he wasn't there. But I got to the
That's got to get your pulse racing.
Well, I'm like, where is this man? I mean, luckily for me, our house goes in a circle. So it's just like I just kept going from one room to the next. And then when I went to the kitchen, he had his placemat out, and he had set the table, and he was sitting there. And he looked at me, and I said, Dad, what are you doing? And he said, well, I want pancakes for breakfast. And it just, it broke my heart because it just wasn't possible. And I looked at him, I said, Dad, there's just nothing more. I want to give you pancakes for breakfast. But I said, you're on hospice. We have a DNR. I said, if I give you pancakes and you choke, we're done here. And I don't think we're quite ready to be done.
Right.
And of course he said, oh, yes, I can. Matt said I could. And Matt's my brother, and he's a nurse, and he wasn't there that morning. So I knew we were dealing with some oxygen deprivation and some confusion.
Oh, okay.
So, a few short weeks later, my father would pass away. And when I came back to New York, I took one day off of work. And my husband said, why don't we go to the diner and have some pancakes for your dad? And I love that idea. And so my husband took a picture in the Bel Air Diner in Queens, New York. And I told about the story. And I said, our lives can all change in a blink of an eye. And at the end of the day, it's really the little things that make such a difference in our lives.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so I said, if you're so inclined, why don't you go have some pancakes for Roger and remind yourself of all the blessings you have in your life and all the things you have to be grateful for. And it was just like me sharing part of my heart, part of my sorrow, and that's it. Like I never thought I'd go anywhere. And then people started having pancakes and they started sending me pictures. And then people started texting me and saying, I can't have pancakes and not think about your dad and talk about the military and talk about service with my kids. And so then what we decided to do is his birthday was February 22nd. So then we started doing every single February. We started running a picture campaign in benefit of the University of Missouri School of Law Veterans Clinic. And so we said for every single picture we get, we'll make a donation to the clinic in my dad's honor. So it just was something fun. I didn't realize how much work it would be, Mike.
Oh, really? It turned into a lot of work?
Oh, well, if you have to count pancake pictures multiple times a day on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Okay, fair.
Good God, it's a lot. I don't have an intern. I'm counting all those pictures myself. But it started out, it was like the first year, like I think we got like 100 pictures, right? And so this year was actually Pancakes to Roger incorporated then as a nonprofit in December of 2023. And then prior to that, I actually wrote a book called Pancakes to Roger. And part of the proceeds of the book go to the Veterans Clinic in perpetuity. So the book came out. So it was like a request from my dad. Then the book came out. Then it became a keynote speech. And then now it's a nonprofit. And then we just completed our biggest campaign ever. Because now that we're a nonprofit, we can actually have sponsorship dollars to help support the efforts.
Oh, nice.
And so we actually we collected 857 pictures from all over the world.
Whoa.
We got all 50 states. We got all 7 continents, including Antarctica, because McMurdo came through for me in force. I reached out to them and I said, okay, guys, somebody got me Antarctica last year. I can't fail this year. And so I reached out to the post down there, the base down there. And the guy got back to me. He's like, we don't have any pancakes, but he's just like, but we have a shipment coming on Sunday. So hopefully we're good. And they did. And so they had the pancakes and it was great. But so we got all 7 continents and then in 29 countries.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it's been really, really cool. And it's heartwarming. It is. I'll tell you, I've done a lot of things in my life, but it's just nothing touches me like this has. Because, now there's kids that are growing up on Pancakes to Roger. And there's kids that look forward to February every single year.
Yeah.
We run contests. I mean, we're closing out our voting on Thursday for our contests. And with like the most creative pancake, the most patriotic pancake, the craziest place to have a pancake. I mean, we had somebody that owns a dry cleaner that she had one of her staff members. She got into a massive dryer, and had pancakes.
With pancakes?
Yeah, with pancakes. So it's just, it's just kind of funny because we're not begging people for money. We're just saying, hey, take a second to reflect on all the great things, because there's something that any single person can be thankful for today. They could be in the worst, headspace that they've ever been in, and there's one thing that they can be grateful for. And so that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
And, since we're a nonprofit, I mean, the plan is we're building an endowment right now because we, in 2025, what our hope is to start giving grants to veterans that want to do projects. So our mission is to unite veterans with funding opportunities to do good in their backyards and beyond.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so we'll always continue to support the Veterans Clinic through our annual picture campaign. But now that we're an official nonprofit, I can actually do things outside of February. And we did a weightlifting competition in February. That was the dragon slaying competition. That was a lot of fun. We're going to do a virtual walk run this September, I believe. And then we're going to do another virtual weightlifting competition just for fun. I think there might be a challenge in there that we throw in. I don't know. We're still kicking it around if it's going to be like push-ups or sit-ups or something like that, just for
I'm out.
Yeah, you're out. So,
that is so cool. And it just started off with your dad asking for pancakes.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
That
I
is
mean,
so cool.
yeah, and I mean, so it's just it's one of those things that it's like, a lot of people think that, you know, that they can't make an impact. And, so it's just been so fun. And I'll tell you, like on social media, I mean, because when we're trying to get all the states, Wyoming is always my bone of contention, is always my
Really?
state. Hardest state. Well, it's like there's only about 500,000 people in that whole state. So it's
Fair.
hard to get. But that's always the state that just gives me a little bit of heartburn until we get it, because it's always like the few days left and we're like, come on, Wyoming, pull through. And then we get like 7 Wyoming pictures in one day. I'm like, you guys couldn't come out. So I told my husband, I said, we're going to retain this information. We're going to go to the Wyoming people first next year, so I don't have to stress out about Wyoming.
So what was the most unusual place? Was it the dryer this year?
So that's one of the, I mean, because we're letting the public vote.
Oh,
So
okay.
so those will get announced on Friday. But there was Antarctica. That
has
was
to
a
be
creative
top.
place. There was somebody having pancakes in a dryer. There's an Air Force veteran that lives in Colorado, and he hiked up an 11,000 feet elevation mountain on his lunch break to just have a pancake for Roger. So
On
it's,
his lunch break,
yep,
as one does, right?
exactly.
Wow, that is so cool. So you finished the campaign for this year,
Yeah, yeah.
and
So
so many big plans for next year.
yeah, so I mean, it's just like we're always trying to grow and evolve. I mean, so we, like I said, we collected 857 pictures throughout the world. The donation to the Veterans Clinic is going to be in excess of $10,000 this year. Um,
Holy buckets.
yeah, and that's almost double what we did last year on our donation. So our donation last year was a little over 5,000, and so one of our sponsors is actually matching the donation up to $5,000.
So
So it's
cool.
pretty cool. Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'll tell you, the contests have been fun. One of the other things that we did, since we're having sponsorship now, is people were able to sponsor states and put their logos on the states. But then also too, if somebody doesn't have a business, we were letting them shine a spotlight on maybe a cause that that's near
Oh,
and dear to their
cool.
heart. So there was a woman from Montana that she wanted to sponsor Montana, and she's very big in supporting women of indigenous tribes. So there was a logo from an organization she's a part of that she sent, and that's what we put on Montana. There was one woman that she's a pretty big speaker for 5 Under 40, which is a breast cancer charity. And so
Okay.
that's the logo on one of them. And then we also just designed some logos for people that wanted to do that as well. And that was just kind of fun for us.
That's so cool. And this is because I should maybe I just shouldn't tell them. I'll just tell them to go to the website. But you have a map
Yes.
of where every place where you've received pictures from.
Yeah.
And I went on there and I went, I wonder if there's one from Minnesota. And I looked at the map and I went, where isn't there one from?
Yeah. So with all the states and all the countries, I mean, it's just, and the continents too. I mean, it's just been fun. And I do have a friend that's supposed to go to Antarctica for his vacation next year. So he's guaranteeing me Antarctica, but I'm going to stay in close touch with the McMurdo.
Oh my God.
To make sure to get it.
How many other people do you know that have a contact at McMurdo?
You know what? I'll tell you, Instagram. Like, I reached out, I contacted 3 explorers in Antarctica, and I said, hey guys, here's the deal. We run a veterans charity, and we try to get pancakes in all the continents. And I was like, I need your help. And so, and we have fun with it. I mean, because not everybody likes pancakes, not everybody eats pancakes. So, since we have the
One
book,
month a year, you can eat a pancake and take a picture of it.
yes, or you don't have to eat it; you can just take a picture. So, but we
wouldn't eat a pancake.
No, and you can do scallion pancakes, like if you like them from Chinese restaurants. We call waffles pancakes with abs.
Oh wow!
And then over in Europe, they're not.
They do pancakes a little differently.
So it's more like crepes.
Okay.
So we'll count crepes as pancakes. And then there was somebody that submitted one that was a Japanese. It was almost like a chopped up vegetable and they called their Japanese pancakes. And so, so we accepted that too. So it's kind of cool because we had somebody that submitted some from Indonesia this year, and they're like these fluffy pancakes that just I don't even know how they make them, but I was like, that's pretty cool. So just kind of getting creative is a lot of fun too.
So I'm out on the push-ups and sit-ups, but if you need somebody to taste test some of these otter pancakes, I'm your man.
There you go. Well, and we count pictures with the book too. So since there's a book, so we get people that take pictures of the book, and that counts as a picture. And then since we had the weightlifting competition, and we have some swag now. If people bought sweatshirts or things, and we had some people that like would buy a sweatshirt, they had the book and they had pancakes, and so we would count that as 3 donations.
Nice.
So multiple things, then we count multiple times too.
Oh my gosh, Susan, this has been so much fun. I mean, one of the things I like to do with my show is take something heartbreaking, your dad's cancer and passing, and then show how we can turn it into something positive. And that's it right there. You are such an inspiration. And I absolutely love your program. Pancakes for Roger. And you know what? I should rerun this next January towards the end, just to remind people to do that in February.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love that.
I might do that.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, Susan. It's been just awesome.
Thanks,
Awesome talking to you.
That's why we have it, right?
I got there sooner or later. It happens every now and then. I glitched. Thank you. I do appreciate it. I wish you so much luck with Pancakes for Roger in the future. And we will be back in touch.
Thanks.
What a fantastic conversation with Susan Combs, CEO of Combs & Co. Insurance Brokerage in New York City, if you're looking for insurance. Also, the head of the charity Pancakes for Roger. And you know what? I don't need an excuse to eat pancakes, but this will be an extra special inspiration come next February to order some pancakes at any rate and take a picture of it and send it in. All of Susan's links, her Facebook, her LinkedIn, her Instagram, will be available in the show notes. I wish them so much luck. It's such a great program for veterans. And that will do it for this episode of the Kindness Matters podcast. We will be back next week, as always. Until then, be that person who roots for others, who tells a stranger that they look amazing, and encourages others to believe in themselves and their dreams. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate the 30-40 minutes it took for you to sit down and listen to this episode, and I appreciate you for that as well. You have been listening to the Kindness Matters podcast, and I am your host, Mike Rathbun. Have a fantastic week.